Hello, everyone, and welcome to another conversation with Carrie and Dani. We are just chatting a little bit, swapping stories from when we were both part of the Seventh Adventist Church, maybe some things that are happening currently in our lives, or stories that we've heard, or just different things. So we don't always know what we're going to talk about when we start. Sometimes one or the other picks a topic, and off we go. So today is one of these. What are we talking about today, Dani?
Well, I'm hoping you're going to have some opinions on this subject, Carrie, because otherwise it'll be the shortest thing we've ever done. Um, I don't know why. Okay, I was awake in the middle of the night again. You're probably going to hear this over and over. It happens occasionally. And I was thinking about something one of my friends said to me. They have a complicated relationship with their mother. I have a complicated relationship with mine. I mean, it's hardly a surprising topic. We could probably fill 5 or 6 shows of that. But they have a complicated relationship with their mother, and they were having a really down day and feeling really alone. And my friend said to me, I feel like I'm a door. I feel like my contact with my mother, I feel like I'm a doorway to the kids. She just wants to see her grandkids. I feel like
Mm,
I'm a door. I'm the door she has to walk through to get to the grandkids. And they said, I want it to be like it used to be. I want to be the destination.
mm,
And basically she was saying, you know, if yeah. So we won't go into how things change as you grow up and that sort of thing. And I know I've wrestled everyone. It's just relationships and connections change as we grow up. Um, but it got me thinking on a different subject. Same question, different subject. And of course, growing up in an Adventist, as we've talked about in other things, I grew up with some weird and strange ideas. And I thought about that question and I thought, if I ask myself that same question in relationship to Jesus, how is it? And it just really struck me. And I realized that I realized that I grew up with, if I when I look at everything that I was taught, everyone was always my big deal. Okay, you've got to be friends with Jesus, you've got to have a relationship with Jesus. But even though that was what was said verbally, what actually happened in the undercurrent story was never actually that in the culture I grew up in. He was just a doorway to get to heaven.
mm-hmm.
It was just something that you had to do. You had to know him, or you were never going to get to the actual destination that you wanted. And so I got to thinking, how would my life have been different? Um, and I'm sort of in the middle of this change now. I can't even say it's completely changed because you don't just wake up one day and the habits and thought patterns of a lifetime go away. You've got to actively work to change them. I thought, what would it have been like if I'd grown up like some of my other friends, where being friends with Jesus was like the destination? That was it. You were friends with Jesus. What happened, happened. What didn't happen, didn't happen. Rather than the end goal isn't to be friends with Jesus. And then out of that comes all the changes that might occur because, you want to be like him and all that stuff. The end goal was always to live through the end of time and get to heaven.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter if you're miserable now, you've got to get to heaven.
Yeah.
So yeah, to me, I realized when my friend said that, it occurred to me a couple of weeks later, and it's been growing in my mind ever since, that he was, and probably still is in some ways, if I don't consciously think about it, if I just go with my old habit patterns, a doorway, not a destination. And I just wondered, what's
Mm.
it been like for you? Have you ever thought about this? What culture did you grow up in?
You know,
Two easy questions.
oh yeah, you really that was a softball. That's like a real easy question. Um, and I think, and yeah, I have opinions. I just have to formulate them. Um,
Do you have
I
feelings
think
as well, or just opinions?
what's that?
Do you have feelings about the topic as well, or just opinions?
Feelings about the topic. No, and I think what you said is right. I mean, I'm in the process of I need to pick it back up, reading a book called I think it's called Hellbent. Um I'm only about halfway through. It's written by a written by an Adventist or a former Adventist. It's from the perspective of somebody who used to be part of the more right-wing evangelical movement, and how fear of hell, or as
Mm.
Adventists, fear of not going to heaven,
Yep.
whatever the afterlife looks like. I don't know really anymore. I don't have a strong opinion. um his thing is how the fear of hell just governed everything. And so I think that's the flip side of what the question you're asking. So we did
Yep.
stuff because we were scared not to get to heaven, and we did stuff to go to heaven. So we didn't do,
Yep.
yeah. So that was our primary motivation, is the fear of what was going to happen in the afterlife. So it makes me think of it's a song by Johnny Cash, No Earthly Good, I think, maybe. Do you know that song? Is it
So heavenly minded, no earthly good.
let me look it up. No Earthly Good. So basically, part of the I'm looking up the lyrics here. Um
Yeah, because I'm a Johnny Cash fan generally, and that's not ringing a bell, so I'm quite
it's called
surprised.
No Earthly Good. I don't know if it was one of his real hits, but it says, "Come heed my brothers, come heed one and all. Don't brag about standing, or you'll surely fall. You're shining your light, and shine it you should, but you're so heavenly minded, you're no earthly good. If you're holding heaven, then spread it around. There's hungry hands reaching up here from the ground. Move over and share the high ground where you stood. You're so heavenly minded, you're no earthly good. The gospel ain't gospel until it is spread, but how can you share it when you've got your head? There's hands that reach out for a hand if you would. You're so heavenly minded, you're no earthly good. If you're holding heaven, then spread it around. There's hungry hands reaching up here from the ground. Move over and share the high ground where you stood. You're so heavenly minded, you're no earthly good. And that's something that's kind of rung true to me, is if we are so focused, I mean, I think our goal should always, be to spend the afterlife with the Lord, whatever that looks like. But if we are so focused on that we forget to build God's kingdom here on earth by loving and helping people, if we're so focused on our strict mission, on our church, whichever church that is, or whether we're going to church or not, we need to, look around. There's people who need help spiritually, physically, socially,
Yep.
so we don't want to be so heavenly minded that we're no earthly good.
One of my actually no, I'm not going to get onto the other topic. Let's come
Yep.
back to you. So, how was it when you were growing up? So that's the general opinion of the Adventist Church. That's your general overthoughts. How has it been for you? Has there been a time in your life when you look back? Because big question, where you think that maybe Jesus for you personally was more of a doorway than a destination, and how has it changed now that you're 3 years into a whole different relationship with God?
I think that was, I think the mission has changed. I think my mission always was maybe not necessarily to bring people to God, but bring people to the Adventist church, and thinking that those two things were the same. And now I realize that
Yes.
that's not the same thing.
I
That I think
totally believed that. I believed that if
yeah.
somebody met God and really listened to everything he said, they would always end up at Adventist.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've heard people say that, Jesus was a Seventh-day Adventist.
One of my friends is still laughing. They commented from your comment from 2 shows back when you said, "Oh, Jesus wasn't vegetarian."
As honestly one of my favorite stories to tell, even current Adventists or our friends now that are not in the Adventist church. I'm like, no, this is a true story. People are like, no, Jesus did not have the light that we have now.
One of my friends called to talk to me about that. They couldn't get over it. They were still laughing. Um, so yeah.
I mean, I we
Actually.
We were in it when, I mean, when you're a pastor's wife, you hear everything, good,
Yeah.
bad, and ugly.
Actually, that friend called me yesterday, which is probably how I ended up thinking about the stuff I was thinking about overnight.
Hmm.
So yeah, I'd be where that came from.
Yeah.
Um, interesting what you were talking about. Your missions changed because oh, someone I know, I didn't even think to save it. Someone I know posted a whole thing on Facebook about it. And I was reading it, and they were saying that if you look through the Bible and read through it, you know, that traditional evangelical sinner's prayer, and we were taught not the exact one like that, but something fairly similar in the Adventist church where I grew up.
Hmm.
The whole, you have to get people to pray, forgive me for my sins, and come and live in my heart, and that whole constantly every day waking up and saying, come and live in my heart, come live in my heart, come live in my heart every day. This person was saying that that's not actually mentioned anywhere in the Bible. You can't find anywhere where Jesus teaches that to his disciples. Um, they were reading up on that, and they were saying what is mentioned in the Bible is what you said, which is the actionable things.
Hmm.
Um, Jesus said, "Come follow me," and they
Yeah.
did things corporately. They didn't sit around just doing like worship things. They did things. They fed people. They healed people. They helped people. And I was
Yeah.
looking at you. So I was just looking at that and reading through it and thinking, made some really good points
Hmm.
on that. Yeah. It's interesting. Some of the things that you have to say. And I think that a lot of what you say has really been impacted by all your years as a pastor's wife.
I mean, how could it not impact or scar me, depending on how you want to look at it?
So yeah, not to give you a hard time, but I was just thinking, I asked you a question about how do you feel about this, and you give me like a little mini sermon, and I thought that's like a pastor's wife thing.
Yeah, I mean that's what happens, I guess, when you live with a pastor for 25 years. You know,
Um,
he'll
yeah,
always be a pastor. His ministry just looks a little different now, but there's always that pastor's heart. It's not going to go away.
yep. And so I guess for me, rather than talking about, talk about the personal aspect of it rather than the overall concept, for me, I don't really think of it as my mission changing because I've always treated people the same.
Hmm.
Um, but I think that it changes how I read things, what I think, and it changes the questions I ask in my personal, like, worship time. If I think of Jesus as a destination and not a doorway,
Hmm.
especially considering that, like you said, we don't actually know. Take out all the stories Ellen White told, and you don't actually know.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
and why should her stories be any more real than anybody else's? Um, my friend that called me yesterday was talking about our show from a couple back, had said basically why there's a lot of people out there. She started scouring the internet and reading stories of people that have had near-death experiences or that have gone to heaven. And she said, these are people that believe in God and they've been to heaven. Why is their story any less important than the one story we got told from 100 years ago?
Right. Yeah.
Um,
Why? I mean, I don't know, because you're looking at the stories with a predetermined bias as to, if somebody now has a near death experience and said they went to heaven, a tried and true Adventist would say, no, that couldn't have happened because that doesn't align with our belief set, instead of looking at stuff with an open hand, an open, just like, okay, well, maybe that's true. I don't know. And I think when you grow up in a fairly sheltered existence like Adventism was for me personally, you don't always get to ask the questions, and then you're talking about near-death experiences and everything. And when we were fresh out, I guess you could say, we were having my husband and I were having dinner with some of our couple of our Baptist friends, and they're Baptist. They're not non-denominational or anything like that. And I asked him, I said, do Baptists believe in ghosts? And he looked at me like, why would we believe in ghosts? And I said, no. So if you woke up in the middle of the night and you see your grandmother in your room, what would you think? He'd be like, yeah, that's not my grandma. I mean, because they believe that there's not communication between heaven and earth. They
Yeah.
don't believe that. So we always assume that unless somebody believes exactly like we do, they're going to be easily deceived by demons in the end times and all this other stuff, instead of finding out exactly what do they believe. Yeah, they do believe that the soul or spirit or whatever goes to heaven, but it doesn't mean that there's direct communication, that they're sitting there watching us with giant binoculars saying what's happening.
It's it's amazing the different things that people believe. And I remember, oh, goodness, I can't believe I'm going to say this. I'm starting to feel really old. That's 20 years back when I first started doing counseling work. And I can remember a little girl at one of the schools I worked at. I worked at a few. And I don't know, probably would have been 10 or 11 years old. And yeah, she would see regularly and talk to one of her relatives that had passed on. And yeah, I was still a fairly staunch Adventist back then. But as part of your practice, you put that aside, your own beliefs, and you work with what the person believes.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really, really interesting, especially in kids. And she wasn't prone to, telling lies or hallucinations or anything else odd like that. She grew up in a culture where that's really, really normal.
Mm-hmm.
And the more time I spent and getting to know people and stuff in the traditional Maori culture, it's really normal.
Mm-hmm.
I had a client that was going to jump off a waterfall and commit suicide, but her mum come and told her not to. All sorts of just amazing stories. And I treated them all with an open mind, but that was an open mind to create a safe space for someone else. It wasn't really an open mind where I thought, would I believe it if I was in that circumstance? Because like you, I'd grown up being told that,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. But I mean, just thinking back on some of the people that I've met and talked with, and
Well, and I,
yeah.
and I think it's important not to discount other people's experiences, you know, and I think
Well,
that's in general of everything. If somebody tells you a story, I mean, some of them are a little odd, but don't always discount what's going on. Don't know.
I still struggle to believe the person that went up in a UFO. Um, but so back to the other things, I guess it's not just religion.
Mm-hmm.
If you think about it, we talk about it from the context of the church that we grew up in, but it's actually bigger than that.
Mm-hmm.
It becomes a whole medical model.
Okay.
So somebody that came to see me had been put in a psych ward because they heard voices.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to them, so do you hear voices and get messages from the television? And they went, no. I said, do you get messages or voices from the newspaper? They're like, no. I said, the radio? And they were like, no. I said, so the voices you hear, who are they? And she goes, oh, they're family members that have passed on. I said, so they're actually people that really were alive at one time. And she said, yeah. Like, why I'm asking
Like,
her
you
these weird
idiot, why are
questions.
you asking me this?
Um, and I said, well, in your culture, that's perfectly normal. I said, you've been into a normal Western mental hospital and they think there's something mentally wrong with you. But if you went to see one of the spiritual elders, um, one of the, from one of the kamata or the spiritual elders from down at the marae, so she was a Maori lady. I said, what you're explaining to me is perfectly normal. And you come from hundreds and hundreds of years of this is just perfectly normal. It's what's happened in your culture forever.
Mm-hmm.
I don't actually think that there's anything wrong with you. So not that I'm, medically qualified to say that, but I don't think there's anything wrong with you. And even now, looking back on the conversations we had, I still don't actually think there was anything wrong with her.
Mm-hmm.
Other than she walked into a medical model hospital that had no understanding of the culture she and the world she grew up in, and they said, "Well, if that happens to you, there's something mentally wrong with you."
Mm-hmm.
And I know that was a huge turning point for me.
Well, and I think that that's something that's happened kind of across the world from um a cultural misunderstanding and misjudgment perspective. When you're interacting with different cultures who believe and their worldview is shaped in a different way, something that we might view as for myself as a white American, you as from New Zealand, you might look at that and go, okay, these people are crazy, you know, but that's their normal how they interact, and are they interacting with God in that way? You know, so that's something that's a question that I would, 5 years ago would have been like, ooh, I don't think there's any way that God is in that, and now I'm like, maybe
I mean, he spoke through a donkey.
he did. He did. Yeah, there's some weird stuff in the Old Testament. My husband and I are reading through Samuel right now, and oof, yeah, there's some interesting stuff.
There was a guy in a battle that fell in a grave and touched the bones of Elisha and leapt up and come back to life and kept fighting again.
Oh, I don't remember that one. We'll get to that one here, and I think that's in Kings, I think somewhere.
Um, I
One of
mean,
the Kings.
there's there's plenty of stories in the Bible that are strange enough that they don't fit the narrative we've been sold.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, my husband and I will be reading through and we'll stop and look at each other and go, do you remember reading that? And he's read through the Bible. I mean, I will say I've never actually read from Genesis all the way to the end of Revelation. I've read probably most of the Bible throughout my years, but I haven't made it all the way through. He's done it multiple times,
Yeah.
but we're reading aloud to each other. And so that we're taking turns. And so that makes us absorb a little bit more. And we come across stories of things that Saul did and with David and all that stuff. And we look at you, why? That's weird, So yeah.
There's some freaky ass stuff in there. I
Yeah.
don't know how the version that we got sold was so sanitized and devoid of mystery. And sometimes, sorry, I reckon that the Bible stories we got told were as interesting as reading the telephone book.
Well, and I think I mean, a lot of Bible stories should be sanitized for kids. There's a lot of stuff in there that, maybe a 6-year-old doesn't need to know exactly what happened with David and Bathsheba or some of these other things, but I think sometimes we pause, we don't desanitize it for the adults, because I don't
I mean,
know, some could
there
handle
was
it.
a lot of people. There was a lot of people sleeping with all sorts of people and brothers and sisters and fathers and you know,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
murdering people left, right, and center. Oh, there's a lot of stories in there.
Yeah.
When you start to look at it, it's really different to the little sanitized version we get sold.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. How are we doing for time, Carrie?
We have been on for about 27 minutes.
Okay.
Got a few more
Um,
minutes.
that's all right. Uh, I would like to know from anyone that's listening, what struck you as the craziest Bible story? What strikes you as the craziest Bible story? Just drop a note below and tell us what you think the craziest one is. What surprised you? What do you think? Oh my goodness, it ever happened? Because there's some doozies there, and I'm actually wondering if there's some that even I've missed that you all might bring up. That would be really cool.
There was one. I'll start real quick with the ones because we are just reading through First Samuel right now. Let me find what it was. Oh, if I can find it.
It's okay. While you're looking for it, I just want something else that came to me while we were talking about all of this and about the sanitized, whitewashed version of the Bible that we got read compared to some of the stories that are in there. It got me thinking also about some conversations I've been having with some of my other friends about how the culture I grew up in, it separated things. You know how you said, Carrie, that you thought you'd look at it and think, oh, no, if that happened to me, then I'd be thinking, oh, that was, demons or something like that, and the whole believing in ghosts things. I guess what I got, the culture that I grew up in, things were either one or the other. That was very black and white. Things were either religious and sacred and of God, or they were secular and bad for you. That
Mm-hmm.
was it. There was just everything fell into like one of two categories. There was no in-betweens.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I wish I could quote what my friend said because I don't have my notebook here, but what she said was really, really wise on the issue. But I do know that I've been looking at things a whole lot differently since as I've got older, and I don't believe that there's just, it's been quite a few years now since that I have not believed that things are either, here's the sacred stuff, you can, this is all good, this is all religious, this is all like sacred, this is great, and this is stuff that's secular and it's not good for you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, And like, what did you say? You way, way, way back when you were really hardcore, you'd have looked up something and thought, oh, God can't talk through that. But you don't think of it that way now.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was the comment you made that got me thinking about that, about how, yes, I grew up with the black and white, sacred or secular.
Mm-hmm.
And they're definitely two labels that it's been a relief to part with.
Oh, and one thing that we have, I mean, I've just been struck too is just the lack of judgment that I have for other people now. Because it used to be you'd look at somebody and watch them and you're just like, oh, man, take get a load of that guy, like what's going on here? And now it's just like, that's how they're living their life, whether I agree with it or not, you know. But and you're talking about the Bible stories and stuff and why is this in there? So here's the one that
Oh, yep.
yep. So this is First Samuel 19. Um I'm gonna start with verse 18. So this is when, don't know if you remember the story of when David's wife Michael helped him escape by putting like a fake body on in his bed with a goat hair for his head.
No, I don't remember that one,
Okay,
but I
well,
have
you'll
read it
have
all
to
the way
First
through.
Samuel chapter 19 is so anyway, this is after he escaped from Saul
Yep.
because Saul was desperate to kill David.
Yep, I remember that.
Desperate. So this is verse 18. Now David fled and escaped. He came to Samuel at Ramah and told him all that Saul had done to him. He and Samuel went and settled at Naioth, and Saul was told, David is at Naioth in Ramah. Then Saul sent messengers to take David. When they saw the company of the prophets in a frenzy, with Samuel standing in charge of them, the Spirit of God came upon the messengers of Saul, and they also fell into a prophetic frenzy. Okay. When Saul
Oh,
was told, he sent other messengers, and they also fell into a frenzy. Saul sent messengers again the third time, and they also fell in a frenzy. Then he himself went to Ramah. He came to the great well that is in Seku, and he said, where are Samuel and David? And someone said, they're in Ramah. He went there in Ramah, and the Spirit of God came upon him. As he was going, he fell into a prophetic frenzy until he came to Naoth in Ramah. He too stripped off his clothes, and he too fell in a frenzy before Samuel. He lay naked all that day and all that night. Therefore, it is said, is Saul also among the prophets? But the
Whoa,
Holy
I'm going to
Spirit
have to
didn't show
write
up till
down where.
Pentecost, right?
I was going to say, I didn't know that there were prophetic frenzies in the Old Testament. And Pentecost looks tame now. They all left their clothes on, as far as we know,
I mean, so why is that in there? Come on, why?
because we're all supposed to run around naked at church, clearly. It's,
Gonna find a different church if that starts happening.
where did you find, where was that again, Carrie?
First
First
Samuel
Samuel?
18, no, 19. 19 starting in verse 18. So I mean, that's the stuff that they're not. I mean, my husband said he's never preached a sermon on that, so maybe
I think that's fun.
you know. So the translation is the New Revised Standard Updated version. It's the one I got now, so it's
Oh, yep.
one of the newest ones. So I don't know what other versions say as far as prophetic frenzy or anything like that, but I thought that was
Let
interesting,
me
and
go and have a look. For anybody watching, there will not be any prophetic frenzies here on our site and no naked ones.
no, no, that doesn't happen on this channel. You'll have to
When
find
the
other channels for that.
YouTube has laws against it.
I think that I'm pretty sure they do.
Um, oh, on the subject of YouTube, for everybody that's listening regularly and subscribed, um, we were just wondering. So we've been uploading a video. What, every 5 days, roughly, is it now, Carrie?
Something like that.
4 to 5 days, and we were wondering how busy everybody is. How much time you have a week to actually listen to podcasts and YouTube videos, and if maybe we just upload one a week. So if you can give us some feedback on that as well, that would be great. But since that was the last question I asked, please don't only give feedback on that and forget to share your craziest Bible story that you found or something that shocked you.
Yes,
That would be really
absolutely.
awesome. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I think that covers it for today. So hopefully
Yeah.
everybody enjoyed our random little bit of a rabbit trail conversation we had today, but that's okay. That's what it is. It's conversations. We're being real, unedited. So anyway, we'll please like, subscribe, and comment, boost that algorithm so more people can find our videos. If you found them helpful, please let us know. You can share them on your own Facebook page or, send them to friends because I hope that at least in one video, every video, there's at least one gem that's going to reach somebody. So,
Yeah.
thank you for watching, and we'll see you again next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Oh.